targeted phishing attacks are on the rise industry-wide, forcing companies to pay millions toward ransomware attacks. Inky uses innovative technology that integrates with existing security to provide protection against incoming phishing threats. One customer reported that clicks on malicious links were reduced by 20% in 1 month after Inky was installed. Inky catches fish before they breach your network. Don't take our word for it. See for yourself at www.inky.com. Kaseya continues to work on patching its VSA products. The U.S. mulls retaliation for the Kaseya ransomware campaign, as well as for Cozy Bear's attempt on the Republican National Committee and Fancy Bear's brute forcing efforts. Russia denies any wrongdoing. Current events phishbait, Microsoft patches PrintNightmare. Joe Carrigan looks at recent updates to Google's Scorecards tool. Our guest is Umesh Sachdev of Uniphore, describing his entrepreneurial journey. And the Lazarus Group is back, phishing for defense workers. From the CyberWire studios at Data Tribe, I'm Dave Bittner with your CyberWire summary for Wednesday, July 7th, 2021. We begin with updates on the Kaseya ransomware incident. Kaseya had expected that it would be able to patch and restore its VSA software-as-a-service product by today, but technical problems its developers encountered have blocked the rollout. As of 8 a.m. Eastern Time today, the company was still working to resolve the issues it encountered. By the time of today's noon update, Kaseya reported having made some progress. With respect to the VSA on-premises product, Kaseya said, "We will be publishing a runbook of the changes to make to on-premises environments by 3 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time today so customers can prepare for the patch release." The company promises an update on the VSA on-premises fix by 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time today. As far as updating the VSA software-as-a-service product, the company pushed the anticipated availability of a patch until tomorrow. Kaseya said, quote, "During the VSA SaaS deployment, an issue was discovered that has blocked the release. We are resolving the issue that is related to our SaaS infrastructure, and we plan on beginning to restore SaaS services no later than the evening of Thursday, July 8th, U.S. time." Reuters quotes U.S. President Biden as offering yesterday a relatively upbeat preliminary assessment of the consequences of the ransomware campaign. Mr. Biden said, quote, "It appears to have caused minimal damage to U.S. businesses, but we're still gathering information. I feel good about our ability to be able to respond." End quote. That said, the U.S. government is continuing its investigation and is signaling an intention to do something about REvil and other gangs or privateers. Among other things, the U.S. administration said that it has communicated very clearly to Russian authorities that the U.S. wants the REvil operators brought to book. CBS News reported yesterday that White House Press Secretary Psaki said the U.S. had been in touch with Russian officials about the REvil operation and that if Russia doesn't take action against its ransomware gangs, quote, "we will," unquote. TASS is, of course, authorized to disclose that Russia not only had nothing to do with the attack and that it knew nothing about it, and that, in fact, Moscow had heard nothing from Washington about the matter. So either the messages crossed one another or someone's telling a diplomatic whopper. The smart money's on the whopper. The Kremlin usually maintains it doesn't know anything and would like to see your evidence. The ransomware attack, coming as it did so soon after cybersecurity figured prominently in the Russo-American summit, has placed the U.S. administration under pressure to devise some effective retaliation that might deter such attacks. The Washington Post reports a growing sense that the U.S. must either win some public concessions from Russia quickly or punch back hard. Fortune asks why major cyber attacks tend to happen around holidays and gives the obvious answer. Around holidays, people's minds tend to be elsewhere, people's bodies on vacation. The U.S. Republican National Committee said yesterday that one of its contractors had been breached by APT-29. That's Cozy Bear, Russia's SVR, and the same outfit responsible for the initial compromise of the RNC's rival Democratic National Committee during the 2016 elections. The Hill reports that Synex was the vendor breached and that the intrusion was accomplished through a cloud service. Bloomberg says there was no serious compromise of data and that the incident was quickly contained. The Kremlin, in this case, also says it didn't do nothing. Nothing, they tell you. Bloomberg quotes Russia's official spokesman Dmitry Peskov as saying, quote, "We can only repeat that whatever happened, and we don't know specifically what took place here, this had no connection to official Moscow." End quote. Russian official denials of involvement aside, the New York Times contends that the cyber espionage attempt against the RNC places President Biden under more pressure to develop some effective public response to Russian activities in cyberspace. The Washington Post quotes an unnamed senior U.S. official as saying, "No one thing is going to work alone. We're pushing everybody on all of these angles, whether it involves building resilience, using diplomacy, or disrupting networks. And because we believe only together, we will significantly impact this threat." End quote. Some significant portion of any response seems likely to be economic in nature. Dmitry Alperovich, chairman of the Silverado Policy Accelerator, and Matthew Rojansky, director of the Wilson Center's Kennan Institute, published an op-ed in the Washington Post yesterday in which they called for an ultimatum and were clear in what they recommended the else should be in or else, quote, "Before such devastating ransomware attacks become a routine occurrence, President Biden must deliver a quiet but forceful demand. Russian President Vladimir Putin must put an immediate stop to this activity, or Washington will tighten the squeeze of sanctions on the Russian economy." End quote. APT-28, that's Fancy Bear, Russia's GRU, also remains active. ThreatPost offers an account of Fancy Bear's ongoing brute force and password spraying campaign against Western targets, another campaign of which Moscow knows nothing. Nothing, they tell you. Crisis draws opportunists, and the Kaseya ransomware incident appears to be no different in that respect. Malwarebytes notes that references to the Kaseya incident have begun appearing as phishbait in social engineering schemes, usually emails offering malicious links or attachments. The subjects suggest an offer of advice, warning, or counsel in the matter of the Kaseya exploit. Jerome Segura, director of threat intelligence at Malwarebytes, told us in an email exchange that, quote, "Threat actors often use opportunistic themes in their campaigns, and we believe this is the case here. This Kaseya fake update is a Cobalt Strike payload, and interestingly hosted on the same IP address used for another campaign pushing Drydex. In the past, we've seen the same threat actor behind Drydex use Cobalt Strike." End quote. Treat such emails with the same caution you'd apply to notices of automatic renewals of services you don't remember signing up for, or appeals for your cooperation from the widow of the late Prince What's-His-Name, formerly Minister of Oil or something out in Nigeria. Microsoft has released out-of-band patches for the PrintNightmare vulnerability, so take a look and consider applying them if they affect your systems. And finally, North Korean intelligence services haven't left the cyber espionage game. AT&T Alien Labs describes the Lazarus Group's latest campaign, which involves phishing for employees of defense contractors, notably by impersonating Airbus, General Motors, and Rheinmetall. There is, according to Alien Labs, a high emphasis on renaming system utilities, CertUtil, and Explorer to obfuscate the adversary's activities. Their report adds, quote, "The documents attempted to impersonate new defense contractors and engineering companies like Airbus, General Motors, and Rheinmetall. All of these documents contain macro malware, which has been developed and improved during the course of this campaign and from one target to another. The core techniques for the three malicious documents are the same, but the attackers attempted to reduce the potential detections and increase the faculties of the macros." So, Pyongyang has still got game. And now, a word from our sponsor, Barracuda. A year ago, your business may have been part of that massive shift to remote working employees. Ever since, cybercriminals have been working overtime. Now, they're leveraging activity around the COVID vaccine to disguise phishing attacks, hoping to steal money or personal information. That can cost you customers hundreds of thousands of dollars and your reputation in the marketplace. Your email gateway is good for stopping viruses, but you're defenseless against targeted attacks like phishing, account takeover, and hijacking. The Barracuda Email Threat Scanner is a free tool you can use right now to help protect your employees, your business, and your customers. The Barracuda Email Threat Scanner analyzes your Office 365 accounts and identifies malicious emails that slipped past your gateway. Find the cybersecurity threats that are hiding in your Office 365 email right now. Use the Barracuda Email Threat Scanner for free at barracuda.com/cyberwire. That's barracuda.com/cyberwire. And we thank Barracuda for sponsoring our show. Our particular industry vertical is full of stories of hungry entrepreneurs, folks who believe they've come up with a product or service worth sharing with the rest of the world, with the dream of building a lucrative business or an impactful nonprofit along the way. Umesh Sachdev is one such entrepreneur, currently CEO and co-founder of Uniphore, an enterprise AI and SaaS provider that recently announced $140 million in funding. He shares his insights on his entrepreneurial journey.
Having been now an entrepreneur for over 20 years, in hindsight, there are a few things that are really important. First, having a very solid product market fit, having a strong validation from the market, from the customers, that the problem that you're really trying to solve is indeed a large enough problem and one that's actually worth solving. But also more importantly, as I've now realized, because I now mentor other early stage founders, etc., the stage of life when somebody takes the plunge is a very, very important variable, which can have a big impact on chances of success. And I've found that there are 3 stages of life which increase the chance of success tremendously for somebody to become a founder. One is really early on, right at the end of the education period in our life, much like me and my co-founder, because the phenomenon there is first, there are less people dependent on the founders economically. The founders have a much longer runway. They just have to support themselves and probably a few other folk. The age there is also one of where you're still in the formative years of your ideas, and there's a strong willingness to learn a lot of new things, and there's less to unlearn. So that age is one where the chances of success are higher. The second phase in life, to me, is towards the midlife. When somebody spent, say, 20, 25 years in the career, gained enough experience, climbed the corporate ladder, seen scale, and probably even financially saved enough for if they take the risk, if they do take the plunge, by this time there's potentially a small family or some other folks who are dependent financially on the founder. And so it's important to know that you have a 3 or 4 year runway for yourself, for your family. You've seen the scale, you've saved enough, and you're ready to take the plunge, because it's all about minimizing distractions when you're in the founding journey. And then the third phase for me is when you really run your first inning successfully, you're ready to retire from your corporate, innings and jobs and whatever you're doing. But you're still not ready to hang your boots. You still have the energy or that itch. And at that late stage in life is the third big opportunity where chances of success are higher. If you notice across the 3 that I mentioned, the thing that's common is it's really about, have you taken care of everything else so your chances of being distracted are minimized? And if they are minimized, you're likely to invest almost all of your energy in building the business and building the startup that you really want to build out.
Our thanks to Umesh Sachdev from Uniphore for joining us. And now, a word from our sponsor, Verizon. Mitigate the risks and realize the benefits of digital transformation with the help of Verizon, a leader in cybersecurity managed and professional services for nearly 2 decades. From secure cloud computing solutions to advanced detection and response capabilities, Verizon helps secure data, networks, and infrastructure of many of the world's best-known organizations. Their annual Data Breach Investigations report is considered the gold standard of cybercrime research. And Verizon's leadership in network, wireless, and IoT connectivity makes it uniquely capable of protecting the ever-expanding attack surface. Let Verizon help you optimize your defenses and achieve the maximum return on your security investments. Learn more at VerizonEnterprise.com/products/security. And joining me once again is Joe Carrigan. He's from the Johns Hopkins University Information Security Institute and also my co-host on the Hacking Humans podcast. Joe, great to have you back.
Hi, Dave.
Interesting story from the Hacker News website, and this is about some new tools that Google is providing. What's going on here, Joe?
So, Dave, almost no development gets done anymore without the incorporation of some open source project.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And this has actually been a problem in a number of breaches. I think we talked about one that used a cloned repository from somebody and turned it malicious, and that got integrated into some other breach. I can't remember exactly where that was.
Right. And the folks who were using what they thought was that open source code did not know that the problem had occurred.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly. Well, Google has a product called Scorecard, which is available on GitHub, and you can just download it and use it. And what this tool does is it analyzes these repositories that you have. And it develops a scorecard, or a score for how risky the library is. Now, this is a new version. That's what this article is talking about. And there are a number of improvements in the new edition or version of this software. And they include checking repositories for contributions from malicious authors or from compromised accounts, which is pretty good because that's how they're going to introduce backdoors into these code repositories. So imagine you have a system that relies heavily on some network trafficking tool that you're using, and somebody just inserts a backdoor in that network trafficking tool. Now you have a backdoor in your product, and that's bad. They also have fuzzing. They also now do fuzzing, which is a way to test how good code is, right? Because a lot of times that's how buffer overflow vulnerabilities are found, is through fuzzing.
Oh, I see. So fuzzing puts a bit of like a stress test on the code,
right?
As it were.
Essentially, I'm going to put random data into the code and see what happens.
I see. Yep.
Also includes a new static analysis tool and looks for signs of continuous integration / continuous deployment compromises. Also looks for bad dependencies. So if the dependency, if you have a dependency to a known bad product, then it'll let you know.
Interesting. So how what part of the workflow would you work this into? What's, in your estimation, what's the proper place to use a tool like this?
Anytime that you're doing configuration management and you've said, I'm going to use this library and we're going to use this version of this library, then you should run, if you're going to use this tool, run the tool on that version of the library.
I see. All right. Well, interesting development. New version of a free, openly available tool,
right,
that can help keep you out of trouble, right?
Yep.
All right. Joe Carrigan, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure, Dave.
Thanks to all of our sponsors for making the CyberWire possible. Could your company benefit by reaching our large and influential audience? Send us a note at thecyberwire.com/sponsor. And that's the CyberWire. For links to all of today's stories, check out our daily briefing at thecyberwire.com. The CyberWire podcast is proudly produced in Maryland out of the startup studios of Data Tribe. where they're co-building the next generation of cybersecurity teams and technologies. Our amazing CyberWire team is Elliot Peltzman, Puru Prakash, Justin Sabi, Tim Nodar, Joe Carrigan, Carol Terrio, Ben Yellen, Nick Valecki, Gina Johnson, Bennett Moe, Chris Russell, John Petrick, Jennifer Iben, Rick Howard, Peter Kilpie, and I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here tomorrow. It's time to take a moment to tell you about our sponsor, Tanium. Today, no industry is exempt from the growing threat of ransomware. Ransom attacks against critical infrastructure, private companies, and municipalities are alarmingly more frequent and pervasive in 2021. IT and security leaders must act. Understanding network assets and their status is the first step to reducing an organization's attack surface, improving cyber resilience, and accelerating incident response. Check your environment today with Tanium's free cyber hygiene assessment. Visit tanium.com/cyber-hygiene-assessment. And we thank Tanium for sponsoring our show.